Hello and welcome to another episode of Kylie Minogue, the Dimunutive Collection. For this week's special episode, we once again take time away from feasting on Kylie's scrumptious back catalogue. This time we are joined by singing teacher and YouTube sensation Georgina Hill-Brown, who you may know as the Honest Vocal Coach. And by Jiminy, she certainly can be honest if you check out her show. Right, Brittany? So welcome to our little podcast. We are so thrilled to have you, Georgina.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm not sure about the YouTube sensation, but thank you anyway.
You are a YouTube sensation. So before we get going, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? When did you start the YouTube channel?
Oh, okay. Well, I've had a YouTube channel for, I would say it's maybe 8 years now, but in the first 5 years, it was just a channel where I could put all of the students' work that I'd worked with on, so we could show off to parents, you know, what they've been singing and how they were doing and that kind of thing. And it was almost like a light bulb moment. Woke up sort of first thing in the morning and thought, what about reactions? Because I was never really keen on doing reactions because I didn't want to take away from the, you know, structured sort of vocal coach, singing teacher thing. But I decided to give it a try. I did one and then it went crazy. So that was 2 years ago when I did that. So I'm 2 years in now, from, you know, maybe 500 subscribers to, I think it'll be 139,000 today, which is just incredible. Wow. And I've sort of built my channel around a homely kind of feel where you can just sit with me, have a cup of tea and a piece of cake and enjoy some good music. Have a little bit of a, you know, whinge about it if you want, but nothing too negative. Just it's been nice, particularly through the lockdown period as well, because quite a few people have sent me messages saying it just feels nice when they watch my videos like they sat with a friend, and it makes them feel kind of warm, which is something that we need right now, positivity. So yeah, but it didn't even start as the Honest Vocal Coach. It was just a channel for my students. Everything we produced in my studio, we chucked on there, and that's kind of how it started.
Where were you born and what was the very first album that you ever bought?
Oh, this is going to be embarrassing.
Not on our eyes, I'm sure.
Well, I was born at Pontefract Hospital, which is quite a historical little town. And I was brought up in Yorkshire. I moved when I was 19 to Manchester to carry on studying performing arts and just kind of stayed. But my first album was my first album was on tape, and it was 5-star, which I'm so embarrassed to say.
Oh no,
but,
be
you
proud.
know, I had little money. It was my pocket money, and I didn't have loads. And there was Woolworths then. For those of you in the UK, you'll know what I'm talking about. And it was one, you know, in the cheap basket, the bargain bin, and it was 5-star. And for some reason, I really liked them at that point.
Well, we're a great band, and the Bargain Bin is a place where we find most of our favourite artists. So there's nothing wrong with the Bargain Bin, I can assure you.
Demi Lovato and Lady Gaga, all that stuff. I'm a massive girl band fan, don't get me started on that. So I wanted to just start moving more towards the stuff I enjoy doing, not just what I knew would get me the numbers, really. So that's probably why, sorry Kylie, she wasn't on my channel so much in the early days, because I was doing everything. I was doing everybody. So they all got like one video, because I was trying to do as much as possible to find out what my niche is, really.
Back in the old days, she was, you know, touted as the singing budgie. I mean, from a vocal standpoint, she wasn't really taken that seriously. And the way that Stock Aitken and Waterman produced those albums in those days, I mean, they should go in like an hour, record a single, if that, and then leave and add triple track her vocals and stuff. So she didn't get the full credit I don't think she deserved as a vocalist at that point.
I don't think any of them did at that period of time, because it was very much a production line. Just think of it as a factory for pop music. You turn up, you record quickly, they do all the fancy production stuff, and you go home. So there wasn't a lot of there was no creative input from the artists at all. It was, here's the song, sing it, make it sound pretty, and we'll see you later. And we'll package it up for you.
The next time you see it, it'll be on Woolworth's shelf. Like.
Yeah, basically. And there's still an element of that in the industry now. It's where some artists are told exactly what to do. It tends to be more in the K-pop sort of arena that I've noticed. That it's all very manufactured, told what to sing, told what to wear, told what to do, all of that. And I think it's not necessarily a good thing.
From a vocal point of view, does a microphone affect a vocal style? Because obviously Kylie very famously used I'm pretty sure I'm saying this wrong, Christian, Celerac microphone?
Calrac sound. On the albums, it always said the microphone they used, it was some Calrac microphone kind of thing. I'm not quite sure what it was.
Yeah, does a specific microphone have alter the voice in a certain way, or is that more production side?
It's not really a microphone that will alter the voice, but it will enhance certain frequencies. Now, Kylie has particular frequencies in her voice. It's very high toned. She often sings with a higher larynx, and she's tiny, so the sound is, she hasn't got a big face and, big nasal cavity to resonate that sound. So a microphone like that will pick up some of the lower tones and the warmer tones and push them forward to make the voice more rounded, just so it's not all of the high tones coming through. So it's about frequencies rather than effects or anything clever that, we're trying to make it better than it actually is. It's just enhancing certain frequencies to make her voice sound warmer and more rounded.
It's funny you say, because of course she's very petite, as you said, and that affects the tone. Because obviously her and Danny sound very similar. Because I think if you listen to The Winner Takes It All, the version they did together, you can't distinguish between Kylie and Danny at some points in the song. Is that hereditary? Is it normal for family members to sound like, if I got with my sister, would she sound the same as me? Or how does it work?
Not necessarily, no. I've discovered I've been teaching 17 years now, and that it's not a hereditary or a definite thing that a sibling is going to sound the same as you. For example, if I put my two daughters in a room and get them to sing, one's a very high belter, very strong voice, and the other one has a soft, airy voice, and they're very different. That's just an example, but, having worked with lots of families over the years, it's not really a hereditary thing. So it's quite unique that Danny and Kylie sound so similar, because it's quite rare for that to happen.
Does a voice also mature as you're older? I suppose the environment and everything would affect the vocal cords and nodules and all that kind of stuff, right? So, because Kylie, I think, it probably wasn't until the Kylie 94 album, Confide in Me, once she finished with PWL, where, she sort of stepped away from that high, overly produced pop music and went more into kind of Confide in Me and these kind of more ethereal kind of songs where we actually really got to hear her for the first time. And it was a kind of a mature voice, wasn't it?
Yeah, when your earlier years, up until sort of 25 to 30, you've got a very bright tone to your voice. And as it matures, normally around 30, but, it depends on you and hormone levels, it will deepen and warm and develop a little bit more warmth and maturity. So I think what was happening with her is that to create a great pop song, the higher it is, the cooler it's going to sound. So moving into a more indie sort of route for her meant that she got to use more of her lower register, which she had before, but she never really had the opportunity to use it. So I don't think her voice changed all that much. It probably matured a little, but it was the music change that allowed her to experiment more with the range that she had. Because with PWL, they just wanted that sweet kind of high bouncy sound. There wasn't the opportunity for any depth to come through.
In terms of those early PWL songs, a lot of people kind of dismissed them at the time. Obviously, people our age, we used to love them when we were teenagers. They were our anthems. But as a vocal coach and as a singer yourself, do you look at those songs and see complexity in those songs? Because now that we're older, we can look back at them. The songs, they are quite complex, melody-wise and harmony-wise, and the backing vocals in the background. There's a lot of clever stuff going on in the music, isn't there? And the songs aren't quite as throwaway as people might believe they were.
Yeah, I'd say in the earlier days of PWL, they were a lot easier to sing. But as as anybody develops, they realize what they're capable of doing in the production side of things. And quite often in those days, the backing vocals weren't the original artist, weren't the main artist. So Kylie wouldn't have done her own backing vocals. It'd be a whole team of people that would turn up and do it all for her. And as sort of time's gone on, I know I do. I like to do my own backing vocals. There's many artists now. If you listen to the track, it's all them, and I think that's much, much better than having a whole bunch of other people on there. Depends what sound you want to create. But yeah, early days, I would say PWL songs were relatively easy to sing. It was only later on did they start to complicate things because they just wanted to push themselves, I guess. And unfortunately, it was challenging the singers as well because you'll notice that some of them disappeared throughout that period.
Oh, yes.
The ones that couldn't hold up to the more complicated songs, they were like, I'm out of here. Like, I can't do it.
I remember Jason Donovan saying at one point, he said that they always used to write songs that were a little bit, that felt for him a little bit too high to reach, but they would always push him that way. Is there a reason why people might do that? Does that help the voice in some way?
It doesn't really help the voice at all, to be honest.
Right.
It's more about creating the pop sound that they wanted.
Right, okay.
For a feel-good song, you need to have it at a certain level so it sounds... look at ABBA. ABBA is the perfect example. They write in the perfect key. So it always feels uplifting and bouncy and just amazing. And it's the same with them. They wanted to do a similar thing. They wanted to stick to a particular set of keys where all the music was higher and bouncy and fun.
Good. Like I'm Australian and I didn't grow up with Big Fun, and coming later and listening to Big Fun now, it's just an assault to the ears and not in a good way because like,
It's so bad.
No offense, Big Fun.
I loved it at the time, but now I'm like, oh goodness me.
Oh, that poor guy who's been forced to basically hold his balls probably to get those high notes, and oh God, bless him.
Yeah, there's many artists that weren't, all that, and they were forced to sing high. I mean, Bananarama. If we're talking about PWL, the songs were great. The singing was awful.
But that was also a girl band that didn't harmonise, right? Bananarama.
They all sang the same melody.
Just sing in unison.
Yeah, because they couldn't do any more than that. And they had to have all three girls so that somebody somewhere would be in tune.
Oh.
Sorry, Banana. Sorry.
Georgina who said that, not us.
What sort of style do you think she should stick with in terms of singing and in terms of the kind of arrangements that suit her voice?
Oh, goodness. I think the best era for me was Spinning Around and sort of that album, which is all slightly disco, but definitely like PWL, the slightly higher, happy toned music. And that's what her voice really suits. I did enjoy some of the lower indie stuff, but I feel that it wasn't as popular because she's so good at the bouncy, slightly cheesy, but not cheesy stuff. So that's where I think her voice sits the best, to be quite honest.
What did you think about the Abbey Road Sessions recordings where she kind of revisited her previous hits in a kind of different kind of style where you actually got to hear stripped back vocals?
I really enjoyed it because I thought that it showed the lyrics more. It helped you understand what the songs were about. Because quite often we just bop along and this is great, I'm loving it.
Yeah.
You're not listening to the words.
No.
And when you do them slightly slower in a different arrangement, you listen closer and go, oh yeah, so I see what she's saying there. You're kind of drawn into the stories a little bit more. And it's not just throwaway pop. There's a bit more complexity to the writing than you realise. So I thought that Abbey Road thing was genius. I also thought it was great that there wasn't too much going on. It was just her voice. That was it, just calm. We're not going to overlay like a zillion vocals. Because what I found often in her career is that triple, like you mentioned it earlier, always triple her voice.
Triple
Always.
tracked, yeah.
Yeah, always. Even on Say Something, the mainstream version, the sort of dance version, you can hear there's many, many Kylies. And they use it. I have it on my own computer here. It's called Chorus, and it basically makes the voice sound like there's three of you.
Oh, wow.
Without it becoming robotic, it just fills it out and makes it bigger. And that's always been done to Kylie's voice. So I love it when she doesn't do that, like with the Say Something acoustic. Oh, I was like, this is great. You can tell she can really sing. You don't need all this layering up. And it was the same with the Abbey Road. I enjoyed that because there wasn't the three thing going on.
Yeah.
Sometimes she does get a little bit nasally. Is that due to the fact you mentioned she's petite and her nasal passages, she's just quite small? Is that an effect of the nasal sort of sound?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a similar issue. I'm not tiny like she is, but I have a very small nose and a very small ear. And when that happens, if I just try and sniff,
Okay.
it takes ages to get the air in. I can't really sing breathing in through my nose. She's probably in a similar situation because she's so petite. That means this whole area is going to be smaller. So occasionally her voice is going to be nasal, which mine is. However hard we work to lower the tongue, drop the jaw, release the soft palate, all of those things, we're naturally got tiny little tubes. So there's going to be some nasality there. I mean, the only thing you could get rid of that with is a bit of surgery, but I don't see the point. It's part of
It's her style now, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's kind of like
it's part of what you sound like. And if you suddenly sound different, people are not necessarily going to be pulled towards you anymore.
In terms of kind of pop divas, and obviously Kylie has been around for 30 years, and she hasn't seemed to kind of had a misstep yet. Everything's been very good, and she's still kind of caught to the public, and they still kind of love her. Madonna, on the other hand, seems to be aging slightly disgracefully in the sense that she's kind of lost, for me, and I'm a fan of Madonna, kind of lost her direction slightly because she's gone for music that doesn't suit her vocal. And then I was watching the other day your take on her Eurovision performance, which, by the way, I'm very curious to ask about the microphone, because you said that the microphone, there was some kind of auto-tune on a live microphone, which I never knew existed, but that's kind of fascinating in itself, because it didn't work. So what do you make about people like Madonna? I mean, Kylie's gone the right way, but has Madonna and maybe Mariah, have they kind of gone in a direction that is ill-advised?
I think the major issue is when you make your music political, and it goes too political, you make your audience much, much smaller. Mm-hmm. And I think with Madonna, she's more intent. I still love Madonna, by the way. I'm a big fan. Followed her my whole life. But I think she's made the issue bigger than the music. And she's taken less care of the other elements. So her voice, for one, she's not really looked after it so much. And some of the other things, the dancing side of things, I think all of that slipped a little bit. She was very, very driven for many years. She was always the top of her game, vocal coaching, dancing, training, looking after her body. But she's a mum now. And that makes a big difference to anyone. Their focal point changes. And they're like, now I want to say something. I don't want to just entertain people. I was saying stuff before, but in a more light-hearted way. Now I really want to say something. And it just, unfortunately, as soon as you go political and you go too far political, your audience just shrinks. Because you're going to have people who agree with you and people who aren't. So you're suddenly halving your followers. And unfortunately, that Eurovision performance was just a bit of a shambles. It was an identical replica of a performance she'd done a year before. The stage and everything. So how it went wrong, I don't know. But like you were saying about the microphone, that was purely a setting because you can have... It's got a fancy name, which is long, but it basically tunes the voice live. Wow. So you could sing anything into it, and as long as your sound is coming out, it will turn that into the pre-recorded track.
So how bad was Madonna that night? She was terrible.
Yeah, I think the issue there was she realised she was out of tune, and the tuning tried to correct. Right. And unfortunately, it just didn't work. So it just sounded off key the entire time. Some singers will recognise that it doesn't sound right, and it sounds weird, but you can actually sing in another semitone so that it fixes itself. Wow. But partly, I think she just couldn't hear herself well enough either to correct it. And I also think there's other issues, but I don't, I think there's a health thing going on there.
Yeah.
I don't think it's difficult to say because I don't want to upset anybody or, go too far, but I have a feeling she wasn't as bright and bushy-tailed that day as she could be. She seemed a little bit slower on the uptake, if that makes sense.
Did you find it amusing that the record company afterwards released another version of that live performance with the vocals corrected? It was unbelievable.
I know! Oh my God!
Because we've not seen it live.
It was crazy. But it was too late. I'd already done the video then. I got so many messages afterwards going, have you changed the audio? I'm like, no. Literally, I took the clip that I used was out of the live stream from Eurovision.
Yeah.
That's the one that I used. And people were like, no, never. You've made this worse. I'm like, no, this is literally what she sounded like. The new one that they've now doctored and corrected, that's what, people are comparing it to.
Yeah.
The same thing happened too. I love this.
Okay.
Cheryl Cole, I don't know if you're fans or not. I like her music.
Yeah. She's not a great live performer.
No, she did a performance on X Factor of one of her new singles. And there was one particular note where she transitions into mix, which she's not very good at, I'll be honest. She's a belter, a chester. She can't really do much else. Sorry, Cheryl. You make good of what you've got at the end of the day, and she knows what she's good at.
Yeah.
Anyway, she misses this one important bit at the beginning of the song, and it crackles and it sounds so off tune. Anyway, I reacted to that one. A week later, her video comes out and it's tuned, and my video gets blocked. I'm like, what? So my video got blocked by Psycho and the X Factor people, because they wanted the nice one to go out, not how it actually was. Which is I had to work hard on that one. I was like, hang on, that's censorship. You can't do that.
Especially it was on live television as well. So
I know. So people heard that it was dodgy. Eventually, it was I think it was about 2 weeks later, the block was lifted and my video went back on again. But I was still a little bit like, what? You're going to block my video, put out a better one to make it sound really good, even though on the day it wasn't that good. I don't like the smoke and mirrors. Bothers me. Performers should be able to do live what they can do in the studio. Yeah. Anyway, rant over.
From a kind of evolution point of view, obviously pop music's changed so much from even in the past 5 years. For me, I miss the Whitney Houstons. I've missed the belters, with people with really strong voices. I fear that we're not going to get that in the current cycle of what we're seeing coming out, and with the kind of more hip hop R&B influence that's coming out. Do you feel the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's more to do with looks and popularity than actual vocal talent. Because there is a lot of artists that are coming through that, they can sing, but they look really good. They fit the mold. And unfortunately, the looks seem to be more important than what the voice sounds like, because they can always tune it in the studio, it'll be fine. And I disagree with that. I think, when you look at your Mariahs and Whitney and, these great singers, they could do it live as well as in the studio. Whereas a lot of these newer artists, their live performance ain't so great. Because there's a lot of production in the studio to make them sound better. They may be beautiful and look the part, and sell the records on the sort of more sexual side, because that's what they're selling. But don't get me started on Nicki Minaj and WAP or whatever and all that stuff as well. It's just, that's the way music's going now.
Yeah, it is. It's just
even the pop dance music. It's not songs anymore. It's kind of, there's melodies, but it seems to be more about kind of what's the word you use for them? It's kind of like they're not song melodies, but they're kind of like
like a riff.
Yeah.
Put in every so often.
Yeah, and it's just to make it repetitive.
Drop and it's repetitive. Yeah, it's more about dance music now than songs that mean something, which I think is why we love artists like Adele so much, because and your Sam Smiths, who are real songwriters, and they don't necessarily fit the beauty mold. Although, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't fit the mold of your Rita Ora compared to your Adele, although Adele's probably like Rita Ora now, having lost weight and things.
Yeah.
But there is a good chunk of this generation, the younger generation, who still really appreciate good singers and stories.
Well, the irony is, isn't it, that, you know, once upon a time, I mean, songs like kind of Ed Sheeran and Adele singer and Sam Smith would have been described years ago as kind of Radio 2 middle of the road balladry. And yet it's kind of the most popular kind of music, and it's very popular with young people as well as slightly older people. So it's kind of weird, isn't it, that, you know, they're the ones who are kind of seen as these icons, and yet they're kind of doing very kind of middle of the road kind of music, which is great music, but it's just kind of inoffensive, isn't it?
Yeah, who's the other new one? Luis Capaldi.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing. Very, very good songwriting, simplistic. He doesn't fit the beauty mold, if you like. He just looks unique and himself, and he doesn't take himself too seriously.
Well, it's very funny.
What Ed Sheeran's thing is as well. He's a ridiculously good songwriter. He plays every instrument. He does all of it. And he may not be, you know, it doesn't look like, I'm trying to think of someone gorgeous. George Clooney, he looks totally different to that. He doesn't fit the mold, but his songs just, it doesn't matter. The songs are that good that they're going to come forward.
I know, because the thing is, like years ago, talking about PWL, you had Sonia, you know, all those 30 years ago, and she probably wouldn't fit the mold now, but, you know, she was a very talented singer. You know, she was, I mean, I'm not sure about her dancing. She was always kind of waddling on the stage a little bit. But she had a great voice. But I wonder if in this day and age, would she have had the same success, bearing in mind that there's a lot going on in terms of image and
No,
production?
I think people want edgy now. It has to be a bit more edgy. Whereas sweet and bubbly and girl next door is definitely not. It's not important in this generation, anyway.
No. Do you think there'll be a comeback at some point? Because obviously every generation kind of goes for a certain kind of thing. So do you think we'll come back to a girl next door type thing? Because it was kind of aspirational back then. So, you know, we'd look at people like Sonia and Rick Astley and think, well, that could be us if we had a voice. But, you know, it was that kind of boy girl next door that, you know, they could be us.
I think reality TV is going that way. I'm not sure about music. I think
Not yet, yeah.
we're still experimenting with the hip hop and the you know rap and all of that at the minute. But reality TV, that's going that way. You know, all the underdogs that go, you know, next door, or you know, someone who's lost someone else and it's a sob story. That's the way TV's going, the reality TV shows. But music, I still think there's a way to go with this sort of rap and hip hop era yet.
Going back to Kylie and Christian, I know this is one of your favourite songs, Your Disco Needs You. And Georgina, you did an amazing video of this. Just talk us through, your again, people haven't seen the video, what your reaction is on this song.
Oh, it's just such a feel-good song. And it's the lights. It's that sudden, like, mirror balls and brightness. Like the new video, actually. Say Something, the new video, with just that almost galactic kind of brightness. It just makes you think of futuristic sort of joy for me. And it's just about dancing and enjoying yourself. There's no negativity in that song at all, which is why I love it.
And vocally, obviously, she ends the song with a very, very high-pitched note. Now, were you impressed? Because when I always assumed it was the backing singer who'd done it on the recording. So when I saw her do it live a few times, I was surprised to see it was her voice. So were you surprised that she could reach those notes?
No, I think she's got quite a large range. I just feel that it's often the song that defines what she shows off in her voice. This is an interesting thing. When I work with songwriters, in the early days, they write to what their voice is capable of doing. And then as they advance their own vocal abilities, the songs get more advanced and they add more riffs and more clever stuff as they develop. And I'm not saying, you know, Kylie's not at that point. But it's the song first, and then she'll put her voice into that. And there'll always be a middle eight moment or somewhere near the end where she can show off a little bit. But it's song is king. That's the key. And if you let the voice take over too much, it's just a warbly, over-sung mess.
The thing about Kylie, as we've discussed over our recent episodes, is that we all know her as a disco pop star. She does all the great perky pop hits. But when she does ballads, her voice is actually very, very beautiful. And there's a song she does, it was the B-side to Confide in Me years ago. And it was a cover of Prefab Sprouts' If You Don't Love Me. And it's just her and the piano. And she's done it live on some of her shows. And it's absolutely beautiful. And, you know, all those people who say, oh, Kylie can't sing, if they heard that, they'd be quite impressed by the fact that she sounds so amazing. So, I mean, ballads seem to work very well for her kind of her voice.
It's always crazy to me. I get it a lot on my YouTube comments. This singer can't sing. What? They've had a career in music for however many years. Surely they've been able to sing, because in a studio you can do a lot, but you can't do that much.
Yeah.
If the singer is that bad, it's impossible to make them sound, you know, as well as Kylie does. I just hate that line. They can't sing. I'm like, whose opinion is it? Where's that coming from? Can you sing? Do you know what qualifications do you have?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going off on one. I just get so irritated by certain things that people say. She can't sing. What?
If someone's out there who wants to sing, what tips can you give them if they want to learn and they've got a little bit of kind of a talent there that they think? What kind of steps can you advise?
I think learn the basics, because singing is often like building a house. You have to get the basics in place, the foundations first.
And is that breathing? What is the basics?
Yeah, so your basics are your breath control, singing without tension, which is a big deal. Nerves and tension is a big deal early on, because the anxiety side of things, singing is very personal. And people are commenting on you when you sing. It's not like you play the piano and it's the piano that makes the sound. You can kind of detach yourself from that. So yeah, the nerves, building, breath control, general pitch as well, making sure that you're pitching correctly, and also the onset of tone. That means how quickly the vocal folds come together and create a nice sound that's not too pushy or not too much breath. So they're sort of the basics. Then from there you would look at what your range is, how many notes you've got, start to advance that, and then you look at tone, and then we go anywhere from there, riffs and all the rest of it. But those foundations of good breath control and understanding your capabilities is so important to build natural confidence, because confidence is massive.
If Kylie came to you and you had an hour session with her, and if it was a singing lesson, what tips would you give Kylie?
I think I would encourage her to be herself, relax as much as possible when she sings. Because what I found throughout my singing career, I have often performed to please people. That I know what they're expecting, so I've put myself into that mold to please those people. So being herself and sing for what she feels good to her and what sounds right to her. Don't try to please anybody. And what I'd also do, because she is a lady who is a little older, it's really important to keep your range open. So I would give her plenty of exercises to ensure she's using all of her vocal range, because most pop songs are in the middle of the keyboard. So we sing that scale. So these notes and these notes get left, and we lose them because we're not use it.
It's a muscle, isn't it? It's like a muscle. You have to keep using it. Oh,
yeah. So use it or lose it. So I would probably work on range with her and keep working on transitions between the registers, because the older you are, the harder, or rather the more noticeable transitions from chest to head and head to whistle and so on are. And there's times you want it to be obvious to make it clever, like like a little flick, but then there are times where you want to slide it up, hey, rather than the little flick.
Yeah.
So it's knowing that you can do both, and as you age it gets a bit trickier. So I'd help her with those areas, really.
Controversial topic. Who's a better singer, Kylie or Danny?
Oh, right, okay. I would say there was a period in time where they could have quite easily been as good as each other. And Danny was more famous in Australia at that point.
Yeah.
I actually think she was probably the better singer. She has slightly more depth to her voice. And I felt at that point she was the better singer. But because Danny's not continued as that as her main career, her voice is probably not up to the same standard as Kylie.
And just about yourself, on one of your shows, you mentioned that you used to manage a girl band. Now, you said you love your girl bands. The girl band you managed, do we know any of the people that you worked with? Have they gone on to other things?
Well, the girl bands that I manage, they've all done fairly well, but they're not famous as such. But there are girl bands that I've worked with that have done well.
Oh, yeah.
Early days of the Saturdays, I
Oh,
worked
right.
on a few things with them. I worked with Natasha Hamilton from Atomic Kitten on a couple of TV shows as well. She's done okay for herself. She's still, she's not singing so much, but she's going the reality TV route.
Yeah.
She's in whatever show she can get involved in. But now I tend to focus more on one-to-one than the girl band stuff. And handling girl bands is a nightmare. Oh yeah. It's not just, especially when they're younger, it's not just the girls that you have to keep in check that they're where they're supposed to be and that they're not fighting each other. It's the parents as well. They can be just as bad. So yeah, for any managers of music out there, don't manage girl bands. Keep it simple. Just the one person is fine.
And you also, Georgina, offer this service where people can actually send in their recordings and you give an honest opinion.
Yeah, it's always fair. I'm never rude. I will tell them if it's not good enough, depending on what their goals are.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to be the next big star, I'll tell them like it is. But if they're doing it for, fun and enjoyment, then I'll break down what's good about the voice, what's not, and how they can then correct it, which is the best way to go, really.
Amazing.
The one last thing that we must ask you is, every episode we kind of look, when we're looking at the albums, we kind of check out the songs that we like. We have Kylie Smiley songs, the ones that we love, and we have the Kylie Minogues that we don't like so much. So looking back at Kylie's career, give us your 3 Kylie Smileys and your 3 Kylie Minogues.
Okay, so Hand on My Heart, because it's just crazy daft. Got my hand on my heart.
Tune. It's a tune.
Can't Get You Out of My Head because it sticks in your head. You can't help it. And Spinning Around, I think. Very just catchy, stick in your head, fun songs. But they're not so good ones. This is tough because I don't really have any that I'm not a fan of. I heard one I watched the concert the other day on TV. I was up late. Watched the last.
Golden. Was it Golden? The Golden tour?
No, the one before.
Oh, Aphrodite. No, Kiss Me Once. Kiss Me Once or Aphrodite? Oh.
There was quite a chunk of songs that were very slow, and I found them a wee bit on the boring side.
Ooh.
Sorry. I was listening to the whole concert, and there was a few, not mashups, but she mixed the songs up a little bit, new versions of songs. I think Hand on My Heart was one of them, and it was slowed down. I didn't really like it. It didn't really fit for me. I'm trying to think of the names of the songs, but there was a portion of about 3 where I was like, I just going to get a drink.
What do you make of Locomotion? Because Locomotion is my least favourite Kylie song, and she does it every show. And she always kind of changes the style of it. Each time there's a different kind of arrangement of the song. But is that one of your Kylie favourites, or is it a Minogue? It's my Minogue.
I wouldn't say it's a no, but it's definitely not on my list of good ones. It's just a cheesy little blip thing that fills time. It was never her song in the first place, but she made it fun.
Yeah.
Better the Devil You Know, now that I like as a song.
Oh, that's a good one.
Sorry, that just popped into my head. So yeah, Locomotion's all right. If I did have to choose a negative, then probably it would be Locomotion, because it's just, I don't know.
Good. You're on my side, because Kieran obviously comes from Australia, and that was the song that kicked off her career. So
it was I Should Be So Lucky for me.
Exactly.
The UK, but because in Australia she released a different version of Locomotion. It's a completely different production. It's one of my favourites, and I think I'm probably the only one. And a few listeners out there like it, but yeah, I love it. It's just it's my start to Kylie, and I will always hold it close to the heart.
Oh, I ask, actually, before we go, have you guys either met Kylie at all?
Yes, we both
Yes,
have.
we have.
Yeah.
Oh, jealous.
So,
Some of the dancers.
well, Kieran used to work at Madame Tussauds. He had to have her measured and all that kind of stuff at Madame Tussauds.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my previous life.
Previous life. Like you're having two lives. This is like
Totally. And Christian, when he was a journalist, got flown to Ibiza. Got flown to Ibiza to meet Kylie.
My dream was always, I went into entertainment journalism to become to interview Kylie mainly when I was 15 years old, and it took me 15 years to get to that point where I actually finally got to interview Kylie. So I was very happy. I was a very, very happy boy.
Oh, I love the idea that they flew you out there as well.
It was me and a few other journalists, because it was for the launch of Aphrodite, actually. And it was in Ibiza, and we got to meet her on this cliff edge, overlooking all these tumbling waves down below. And it was lovely. It was really exciting. But I've kind of met her a few times now. But it is a thrill. You know, it's nice when you meet someone who you kind of look up to, and they actually turn out to be, you know, very nice and polite, and everything you kind of want them to be. So we're lucky.
Yeah, and just out of interest, what was it for both of you that got you into Kylie in the first place? It's not necessarily the music, but what was it that made you connect with her?
That's a great question. I think for me is growing up in Australia and her being kind of a national treasure from when she was 19, and me just loving Neighbours, and then getting the first cassette with Kylie, and it was just that. It just made me feel happy. I think it was that joy, that Kylie is joy for me. It's a synonymous word for me for joy, and it just brings me happiness.
Yeah, small package, but full of just, joy. I get that.
Yeah.
So you like the girl next door kind of element, really?
Yeah.
That made you feel homely almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think 15-year-olds in the 80s are different to 15-year-olds in 2020, because we were all so innocent, and, you know, we didn't, you know, I had awful hair and I looked terrible. But, you know, these are these people that we looked to and kind of thought, that we related to them. And, you know, I loved Kylie on Neighbours, I loved Kylie and Jason. And then I used to love Bucks Fizz in the early days, and then I didn't really like much pop music during the 80s. And then it was only when I started hearing the I Should Be So Lucky, He's Got to Be Certain's and Hand on Your Hearts. This music for me was this kind of an amazing beacon for me, and I loved it, and it filled me with a little bit of joy. So, and I still look back at the PWL years as my, you know, older people say nothing's like the Beatles, and for me, it's like nothing's like PWL. That's my period of time that I loved so much. So it's a really lovely way to look back at that, isn't it?
To go on from that, I akin K-pop music as the same as PWL, because K-pop music for me it is that kind of joy. Maybe people now are experiencing what we felt with Stock Aitken and Waterman, and then that kind of music with K-pop now.
Yeah, cake pop.
I'll have one of those as well.
Maybe I'm hungry. K-pop, it's very manufactured. The artist, I've been doing a lot of research because I did a Blackpink thing on my channel recently, and I wanted to know what I was talking about rather than jumping in blind. And what I discovered is the singers, they're on such a regime of staying a certain weight, and they're trained for so many years, almost like a boot camp for pop stars.
Yeah.
And they don't have any say in what they sing. Nothing. The music is pre-written by the producer. They turn up, do what they're told. Obviously, their flair will come out when they perform it, but it's this manufactured kind of whirlwind. It's fascinating.
And it's like that was like Hit Factory, though, wasn't it? Where like they just come in, sing this song, and off you trot, kind of thing. It's
Just out of interest, are you surprised by the success of K-pop? Because I actually edited some K-pop magazines about K-pop, and I was quite stunned when I started doing it 2 years ago. I was asked to do it by this publishing company, and they'd said to me, "Would you like to do this magazine about BTS?" And I hadn't heard of them at this point, but then I discovered that there's a massive, massive following, but it's all done kind of through online, and all the fans have, you know, like they've had a #1 album over here, and we don't see it on television. People don't write about them, but they've got this they're kind of like this secret kind of world. It's kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I think because you've got so many aspects all brought together in this massive production of years of training, so that the singer, performer is at the top of their game, the producer's the top of their game, the videos, there must be so much money thrown at those videos. Plus, they have this very clever way of building the hype before the single comes out. I mean, BTS was today, I think, was it Dynamite that was released today, which I've not looked at yet, but I'll look at that later. I don't know much about BTS
Yeah.
either, but I've known about that song coming for like 2 months. They're really good at building the hype, and because there's so many bands now, and they all come from, there's three. This I've discovered this as well. There's three major companies that do the K-pop, and they all kind of work together and they build the hype between them. So for example, Blackpink on their social media, they'll be pushing the new BTS and so on. It's all interlinked.
Yeah.
So when the single comes out, it's just, yeah.
Well, I know they get like 60 million views of their videos in a day, don't they? So it's like
Yeah.
ridiculous. It's madness, isn't it? But
Yeah.
I always thought Kylie should kind of team up with, because I know Dua Lipa teamed up with Blackpink for one of her songs on her previous album. But I thought someone like Kylie should kind of just jump on that K-pop thing now, because no one's done it yet, and kind of do like an album. If she went K-pop, she'd probably be very successful around the world.
Yeah, I think so. Who else has just done K-pop? Lady Gaga on her last
Of course,
album.
yes, she's got them on as well, Blackpink as well.
He did one. I know Selena Gomez has just done a collaboration with them, which is coming out soon as well. So
She did
they
everything.
know. I mean, Ariana will be next, because Ariana is like the queen of networking.
Yeah.
She knows what's going on. Whoever's got the most followers, she's in there. She did a song with Troye Sivan, who's got one of the most massive followers on YouTube. So she was like, I want that following to me. So she goes and works with them to build it up. So it's a very clever networking strategy.
Yeah.
But you have to be careful. It's got to work at the end of the day, because I think that there was a remix that came out last week, which was Dua Lipa, Madonna, and
Was it Missy Elliott?
yes,
Yeah.
and it's not great.
No, I thought it was. I was so looking forward to it, and it just seemed a little bit like a B-side or like a remix on an album, on a single. It didn't sound great.
Yeah, plus it sounds messy. It's almost like, here's Dua's bit. All her bits sounds great, because it's her producers anyway, mainly. But then it's like Madonna's just chucked on because it's Madonna. It doesn't flow for me at all. I was really disappointed. I thought, three great women, this could be awesome, but it didn't quite work out, which is a bit of a shame.
Are you going to do more Kylie songs on your channel?
Yeah, absolutely. We've just done Say Something. Well, I done Say Something twice. I liked it that much. Because the acoustic one just did it for me.
Yeah.
I liked it more than the original. I love the video of the original, but you could hear her voice so much better on the acoustic. So yeah, I just want to hear the rest of the album now. I want to see what else, because in the last album, there was so many different styles. I felt there was a couple of country feeling tracks,
which is
more
great.
than that. I would say there was a very country feel going through.
Yeah.
So I just want to know what else is on, but I have a feeling it's all going to be disco fun, which I'm excited about.
Well, I hope it's like Light Years, because Light Years is my favourite Kylie album. So hopefully it might be like Light Years Part 2, hopefully.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Oh, Georgina, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on and spreading your joy and your views and your positivity as well. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I've loved
thank you.
it. It's been great. Gossiping about my favourite people. It's just like, yeah, bring it on.
Well, we will be back in touch, because I'm sure we'll be doing some more stars once our Kylie run has come to its end. We'll move on to other stars. So we'll probably come back to you to kind of critique the vocal talents of other stars, like Sonia. Big Fun maybe next time.
Yeah, let's do Big Fun.
Their back catalogue.
Back catalogue. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think there's many.
No, it'll be a short show, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much for speaking to us, and hopefully we'll
Georgina.
see you again soon.
Awesome. Right. Take care of yourselves, guys, guys. And I'll hear from you very soon.
Perfect. Thank you. See you later. Bye-bye.
Good job.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Oh, she's brilliant.
Oh, well, how lovely.
She's just amazing. And the fact that, people out there can send in their own videos and get her, her to critique, I think is great. So if you want to go do that, just hop onto the Honest Vocal Coach's website and all the details are there. But, she's a gem.
Because I've got a hanger in my mouth, I'm smiling so much. She's made me feel very happy, very perky. What a lovely woman. And her show is very good because she is an honest vocal coach because she'll tell the truth, but she does seem to love Kylie. And actually, if you watch her acoustic, the video about the acoustic version, there's bits where her face just lights up when she hears Kylie sing a certain note, and it's quite joyous to watch, and it makes me feel very happy. So I tune in every time there's an upload, so I think others should do that too.
Yeah. So, guys, if you want to get in touch, please email us at thekyliesmileypodcast@gmail.com or hit us up on Facebook and Instagram at the Dimunutive Collection. All right, Christian, well, I think that's it. I'll see you next week.
The bell's on.
Woohoo! See ya.
Bye.